Hello, my name's Rowena. I'm the historian here at Project Paranormal Cum, and I have been researching as much as possible into our first case that we are investigating. So Poppy has been out to this site and done some baseline readings, and we are really excited to be taking a larger team out in the next few days and a bit more equipment, and we're going to see what we can find. So the first case we're looking at is the Marine Colliery disaster that occurred in Coombe on the 1st of March 1927 at 12:50 a.m. There were 130 casualties in total, and 52 of those were fatalities. So tragedy struck at the Marine Colliery in Coombe when an unexpected explosion occurred. This kind of thing was not unheard of in collieries at the time, but it's not something you necessarily expect to happen. So at the time, historically, the colliery had two shafts. Both were about 400 yards deep and 18 feet wide. Now, the number one upcast pit, which was working the old coal vein, and the number two downcast pit, which was working the bigger vein, along with 3/4 of coal seams. So the explosion happened in the morning at the number one pit, which was the old coal vein, and almost 1.5 miles away from the entrance on the eastern side of the shaft. As a result of this, there were big falls of roof and huge volumes of gas, fire, and tons of earth that would have prevented many of the miners from actually escaping. So rescue operations began more or less immediately, and the teams from all over the area arrived swiftly after the explosion occurred and had been reported. They began by descending the west side of the pit, which they found to be unaffected. Men from the unaffected parts of the mine were brought out first. So they were already bringing people out. And when the rescue team headed to the return roads, they found that the air was foul. I'm doing inverted commas here because that is a quote. The whole team was affected by gas and had to retreat back to the pit bottom. So I'm assuming they were in a tunnel and had to go back to where you entered the pit in order to recover. By the time they felt physically better, it was 7 a.m. So by this point, people had been trapped underground for hours. By Wednesday afternoon, the rescue workers were defeated, and the mines inspector for the district prohibited any further rescue work until the area had been ventilated. So at this time, only 21 bodies had been found out of 52. After the air had been cleared, it was tested again. They used canaries for this, and 12 of the birds were brought up dead, which is really sad. But I know canaries saved lives. The quality of the air wasn't considered safe enough for the rescue to resume. So 130 men were working in that area when the explosion occurred, and only 11 got free. And this was like by themselves without help from the rescue operation. It was a day of heroism and gallantry, and many members of the rescue party found themselves up to their waists in icy cold water. It must have been horrific to try and actually get through. There were heavy falls of timber and coal, and one of the rescue team, Mr. Hale, stated he'd seen 19 men lying dead in a group, and many of them had really badly burned bodies. So local doctors also demonstrated huge bravery on the day. Local GPs actually ventured into the pit to help the sick and the injured. So that was so brave. I mean, they weren't trained rescuers. They were just normal people, GPs, but normal people. At 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday evening, it was reported that 51 men were still entombed, and actually all hope of them still being alive had been abandoned on account of the presence of such large amounts of gas. It just wasn't going to be breathable air. On Thursday night, which was the 3rd of March 1927, it was reported that all but 9 bodies had been recovered and removed. So canaries were used again all afternoon, and one bird was actually so badly affected by the gas that it had to be brought back up, and they popped it in a little kind of oxygen chamber to try and revive it. So they knew that this gas just wasn't dissipating. Throughout the week, bodies were being recovered from the mine. It was a really long rescue operation. Most of these bodies were sadly disfigured from the explosion or from the presence of the falls that had happened, and the police, under the direction of the superintendent, W. Edwards, insisted that those who came to claim a body had to describe identifying marks or clothing that might identify them before they saw the bodies. One victim was actually identified by a bayonet tattooed on his arm, another by the way his boots had been repaired. Below the ground, heavy falls were still occurring and slowing the recovery work. On Friday, which would have been the 4th of March, it was reported that 19 bodies had been recovered and brought to the surface. The official inquiry was opened with the coroner, and this was the coroner for North Monmouthshire, on Friday the 4th of March 1927. And then throughout the next few months, various stages of official inquiry were held at other places in the area. So what was the aftermath? What was the effect of this accident on this community? Sunday the 6th of March 1927, 2 men were killed and many were injured when a bus taking mourners to the funeral of the disaster, so this is actually family travelling to the funeral of their loved ones, the bus overturned and fell over the bank close to the Marine Colliery in Coombe. It was reported that those injured were in a serious condition, but 2 more people died. I mean, this community had already been so much, through so much, and it just seems tragic that their run of bad luck, I can't even think what you would call it, their complete and utter, I have to come up with a better phrase for this. It was so disappointing. The whole community had suffered massive tragedy, and the tragedies just did not stop ending. So we honestly believe that we will get some fantastic results from this investigation, and we hope you'll join us for them. Thanks. Bye.